You have seen this scene 100 times, a small tree in a front yard covered in orange fruit, and underneath it, the ground is littered with sticky, bruised loquats. They rot, they draw ants and wasps, they stain the sidewalk, then they vanish into the trash, or birds finish them overnight. Here is the strange part. People will pay $5 for a tiny box of berries at the store, but this neighborhood fruit tree is ignored like it is invisible. So what is going on? Is Loquat secretly dangerous? Is it illegal to sell? Or did we simply forget how to eat one of the easiest fruits to grow in warm parts of America? Today, you are going to learn why loquats keep showing up in American yards, why they almost never show up in American grocery stores, and why so many of them end up rotting on the ground. Loquat is Eriobotria japonica. It is an evergreen tree with long, leathery leaves. In Florida, it flowers when most trees are asleep. University of Florida guides note that white, fragrant blooms can appear from October through February, and the fruit is ready in early spring. That timing is a gift. Loquat ripens when the fruit aisle is usually boring. In California, fruit growers say harvest commonly runs from March to June. It fills a gap. And yet, most Americans have never bought one. The mystery starts with how Loquat arrived here. It has been cultivated in Asia for at least 1,000 years. Florida's extension history says it reached the United States sometime before 1879 and Florida before 1887. It was planted in yards as a hardy ornamental, a dooryard tree. It smelled amazing in winter, and it quietly made fruit. But a dooryard fruit is not the same as a commercial crop. Here is the first big turn. Loquat is easy to grow, but hard to sell. A supermarket needs a fruit to travel, wait, and still look perfect. Loquat fails that test. Post-harvest scientists describe loquat fruit as very perishable and prone to mechanical injury and microbial decay. A major review adds that bruising and moisture loss speed up deterioration, and post-harvest diseases can ruin fruit quickly. Another horticulture reference notes, Loquat's post-harvest life can be about 10 days at room temperature because decay takes over. Loquat is a now fruit. It wants to be eaten soon after it turns orange on the tree. That is why Loquat can thrive in local markets overseas, but struggle in the United States, where our default fruit system is long distance and long shelf life. And there is a second problem: labor. California Rare Fruit Growers explains that Loquat is difficult to separate from the cluster without tearing. It often has to be carefully clipped, fruit by fruit, or the whole cluster removed and then snipped. That is slow, that is expensive, and every extra touch increases bruising. So Loquat becomes a backyard tree instead of a big money crop. And if you think Loquat is some tiny, obscure fruit, the global story will surprise you. Researchers note that China is the main producer, with an annual production around 400,000 tons, and that production expanded fast after the 1970s. In parts of Spain, loquats are treated like a signature spring fruit, with serious export markets. So the fruit is not rare. What is rare is seeing it in an American chain store. That contrast creates a third obstacle: expectations. In the United States, most people meet loquat as a landscape tree, not a food. It gets called Japanese plum or Japanese medlar, and it is planted for glossy leaves and winter fragrance. When the fruit appears, it feels like an accident, and accidental fruit is easy to ignore. Then nature steps in. Loquats bloom in fall and winter. If a hard freeze hits the flowers, you get no fruit. Some years a tree is loaded, other years it is empty. That unpredictability is fine for a backyard. It is terrible for a commercial supply chain. So Loquat gets locked into a strange role. It is common enough to be everywhere, but unreliable enough to never become a mainstream product. Now add one more human problem. A ripe loquat is soft. When it drops, it turns into a slick paste. In warm climates, that paste draws bugs. It can also stain patios and make sidewalks slippery. That is why some homeowners treat loquat fruit like a nuisance, not a harvest. And this is where the story becomes a quiet tragedy. Because the people who would enjoy loquat the most often never taste it. These include older adults who want fruit that is gentle, not overly acidic and not aggressively sweet. People who miss the taste of spring after winter, and people who remember what it was like to eat something straight from a tree. They walk past it because nobody in their life ever said that is food. But then, why does it rot on the ground? If it is good, why do neighbors walk past it? Because many Americans were never taught what a loquat is. They do not know when it is ripe. They do not know how to eat it. And they do not know one key fact. Unripe loquats do not ripen properly off the tree. If you pick them early, you get a sour, disappointing bite. And one bad bite can erase a fruit for life. Then there is fear, and this is where the story gets messy. Loquat fruit is edible, but the seeds are not something to play with. A Japanese government food safety document warns that raw loquat seeds can contain amygdalin, a cyanogenic compound. If seeds are processed the wrong way, cyanide can be released. That does not mean the fruit flesh is poison. It means you should not chew the seeds, and you should not grind seeds into homemade powders. Online, that nuance disappears. People hear cyanide and they stop trusting the whole tree. So a safe fruit rots on the sidewalk because of the part you were never meant to eat. And that is only half the reason. The other half is embarrassment. Loquats drop fast when they are ripe. You can miss the window by a few days. Then they become messy. If you want a tidy yard, that mess feels like failure. So people do the simplest thing, they ignore it. Or they prune the tree hard so it will not fruit. But wait, it gets even stranger. Loquat is built for the home garden. It blooms in the cool season, and it ripens early. In Florida, extension sources describe it as drought-tolerant once established, and a good fit for small yards because it stays around 25 feet or can be kept smaller. So why is loquat not the classic plant you plant once and harvest forever? Because loquat's greatest strength is also its curse. It is too easy. When something grows without fuss, we stop noticing it. We do not plan for it. We do not build habits around it. The loquat asks for one habit. Give it attention for a few weeks. A ripe loquat should give slightly when you squeeze it, like a ripe plum. It should be deep yellow to orange, depending on the variety. If it is pale and hard, it will taste sharp, and it will not sweeten much off the tree. To eat it, you can peel the skin if you want. Split the fruit and remove the large brown seeds. Eat the flesh and discard the seeds. That's it. If you have more fruit than you can eat fresh, you do what people have always done with short-lived harvests. You cook it down. You turn it into jam, jelly, or a simple sauce you can freeze. This is exactly how you beat the shelf life problem. Not by shipping loquats across the country, but by using them where they grow. And now the final twist that explains the piles of rotting fruit. Timing. A mature loquat can drop a lot of fruit in a short window. One household cannot eat it all in time, so a tree that could be a gift becomes an overwhelming mess unless you share it or preserve it. But in many neighborhoods, people do not talk about fruit trees. They talk about fences. They talk about lawns. So the tree stays silent and the fruit becomes waste. If you are over 50, you have seen this pattern before. We often have plenty. We just don't feel permission to use it. And there is one last detail most people miss until they live with the tree. The best fruit often hangs just out of reach. It clusters high and it ripens unevenly. If you only pick what you can grab, you get the worst sample and leave the best to fall and rot. That is why in places where loquat is valued, people pick in rounds every few days, and they share the harvest fast. In other words, Loquat does not need better genetics. It needs a simple ritual. So here is the practical ending. Learn the window. In Florida, fruit is often ready in early spring. In California, harvest can run from March to June. Watch the color, taste one when it turns fully orange. Then pick every couple of days. Handle gently, clip if you can. Refrigeration can buy you some time. California fruit growers note ripe Loquats can keep about 1 to 2 weeks in the fridge, but they are best soon. And remember the rule that keeps this story safe. Eat the fruit, discard the seeds. Loquat is not a dangerous tree, it is a misunderstood one. A neighborhood fruit tree nobody eats, not because it tastes bad, not because it cannot grow, but because it does not fit the way we buy food now. If you found this fascinating, hit subscribe for more stories like this.